And we are back with another episode of the Hockey Princess podcast, back to your regular scheduling of Thursday episodes. I am your host, the Hockey Princess. We got Chris, the old guy, once again. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe on either Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, however you watch or listen to us ramble on a weekly basis. Yes, Chris, the old guy. For those watching, Chris, the old guy, is in St. Louis right now and is very proud that the arch is in the background of his video right now.
Yeah, I am. Also, I golfed today, and I had to deal with somebody in front of me with a St. Louis Blues towel on his golf bag.
Ew.
I said nothing.
I'm very proud of you. That's growth.
Yes, it is. I'm maturing.
You really are.
Yep.
Anyway, I would first and foremost, I want to shout out Combs and Fitz Windy City Sports Talk for having me on this past Monday, talking about the draft going into free agency. It was prior to all of the fun free agency-ness that we're going to talk about this week during our episode. They're really nice guys. We'll probably have them on closer to the beginning of football season because they talk a bit about football, and I know nothing about the sport. So it's going to be an educational opportunity.
And what was that again?
Combs and Fitz Windy City Sports Talk.
All right, nice to deliver a little plug. And yes, I would like them on. I do follow football a little bit, but the Bears have been so disappointing. And I've got a couple questions, so I don't know if I'll be allowed to ask them. If not, I will have you ask them for me.
You can ask questions.
Okay. Well, I don't know if they'd be on with me.
We'll make sure that you're on.
Okay.
Anyway, let's get into it, guys. It's free agency. The draft is done, and on to the next kooky part of the NHL offseason. A lot of things happened. A lot of things with the Blackhawks happened. A lot of things happened just in the NHL. There were a lot of kooky free agent signings. We'll start with the non-Blackhawk ones so that I can spend the rest of the time talking about how excited I am for who Kyle signed. So big ones, not in the Blackhawk scope. We've got Steven Stamkos signing with the Nashville Predators. As we talked about a little bit throughout the draft weekend, there were rumors, there were rumblings that he was going into free agency, not going to re-sign with Tampa. Tampa pretty much lowballed him, which he saw as a sign of disrespect, especially with Victor Hedman's monster extension. And Nashville jumped at the opportunity and said, we will give you a lot of time and a lot of money.
Yeah, so he signed 4 years at $8 million a year. Is that correct?
So good for him. Good for him.
And then who else did they pick up? Didn't they pick up somebody else also?
Nashville has picked up, and I personally use on the NHL app. There's the the free agency trade tracker. It helps me a bit. Nashville picked up Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, and Brady Shea. I think Shea. I don't know.
Yeah, Marchessault was the other guy who, had started in Vegas, with Vegas from the beginning, the original Misfits.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
I'm a big fan of Marchessault.
Huh?
I like Marchessault.
Yeah, so it makes them a contender in the West. Yeah. No doubt about it.
Definitely does. They also signed Scott Wedgwood for a 2-year contract for goaltending, and one of our boys, Vinny Hinostroza, on a 2-way contract with the Nashville Predators. I'm hoping, not that I ever hope for a player to get sent down to the minors, but if he does, that means Vinny's in Milwaukee, and I can see Vinny Hinostroza.
Yep, and if Vinny's in Milwaukee, he'll be playing a good amount against the Hogs. So
yeah, I definitely saw Nashville as one of the biggest swingers in terms of signing guys immediately at the beginning of free agency. Similar to us, were there any big ones? Not us, because we'll talk about us in a minute. Were there any big ones that you were surprised by, excited for?
I'm still trying to digest it all of it. I should have like a million notes. Number one, the Nashville thing. Again, they had a lot of cap money to spend. They also decided to go with Saros and trade their up and comer, which was a little surprising, but you got to get value for somebody. So
Did
they were number one.
actually get traded?
Huh? No, but he's on the block.
I was like, I thought I would have.
He's on the block. He'll be playing in the minors. So I think the plan is, yes, to get rid of him. So
whoever gets involved with that trade is a very lucky team. I do not support the Nashville Predators really ever. He is a heck of a goaltender. He is definitely. I hated when Rockford played against Milwaukee because he is going to be a very good goaltender.
Yeah. And let's see. We can go through our top teams.
Yeah.
Colorado, not much. Their biggest thing was the signing of Middlestat.
Yep.
Anyways. So Dallas brought in a couple players, I believe.
Including Chicago Blackhawk Colin Blackwell.
Yes. Nothing major. They lost Tanev. They lost the other huge guy who didn't play in the playoffs anyways, the Hoopa Hika Mama. I think that's exactly how you say it too. The other big players, you've got the Lindholm one's a big one.
Yeah.
Basically people are already stating that's the biggest mistake in free agency. Very well could be. His numbers have been down for 2 years, but you need to understand that he's a good-sized centerman that now will be playing in between Pasta and Marchman.
I was going to say, I mean, yes, his numbers have been down, but do you think they've been down because of him, or has it been at least a little bit of he's not necessarily had the best line mates, been on the most skilled team?
Well, you were stuck in Calgary for a while, then you went to Vancouver for a cup of coffee, right?
Yeah.
A little bit of his line mates and everything, but he's got enough talent to play with those two, and he's going to put up points. He's not going to put up points if those two aren't with him. Right. But the way Boston is set up, you've got the Zach kid, and then is it Charlie Coyle who ends up going to your third line center. That's kind of the way they need to be down the line. So end of the day, maybe a little bit of an overpay, but exactly what Boston needs. This way, all of their centermen are slotted properly. Let's see. What else did we got? What other big moves did we have?
That's a very good question.
Yes.
I know one that we were I know I didn't think, at least, that he was going to the Hawks was Montour's monster contract out to Seattle.
Yes. Well, Seattle grabbed Montour. They also traded for who? Talk to me. See, I got to be more prepared. Hold on. I'm going to get more prepared. Just you wait.
One of these days, we're going to have an intern.
Yeah, one of these days, and I'll snap my fingers and the intern will bring stuff. It's going to be great. But until then, I'm stuck doing all my own work. And that sometimes is BS. No, Monitor was the only people. It was Utah that grabbed that told all the defensemen. So sorry about that. Yes. So, and Montour's, he's a heck of a hockey player. they have done also out there. So it's, you've already got somebody who you thought was running your power play. Now you're bringing in somebody else to run the power play. That's a little crazy. And that's a long time.
Yeah, that's the thing. That is a monster contract.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big Ron Francis fan, but if you look at the Kraken, you gave Montour big money at 7-1 for 7 years at the age of 30. You gave Chandler Stevenson 6.2 for 7 years at the age of 30. I don't know what you're doing there. That is crazy. Chandler Stevenson is not a number one center. At tops, he's a number two. He's got good wheels. He can go up and down as a center, but if you're planning him in there as your number two center behind Matty Berniers, I do not know. He's now getting tough matchups.
Yeah.
I understand that he's got speed, but that's a lot of money to give somebody with speed, and you're going to pay them until they're 37. So
yeah,
that's a wacky one. Just letting you know, that's a little wacky.
That's a little silly.
Where else you want to go?
Mm.
I'm trying. I'm moving around here. Let's see what else we got. Chris Tanner to the Leafs. Did we talk about that?
We talked about it over the past weekend. What kind of surprised me is how quiet Anaheim and San Jose both have been. Anaheim a little bit less, just because I think right now, or at least it seems like their game plan is to just rely on the kids. Like, we've got a lot of people making, their roster debut, or it's their first couple of years, and we're kind of riding with that and seeing how bad it goes. But I mean, San Jose acquired Tyler Toffoli and Alexander Wenberg. But I figured they would at least try to go after maybe a few more people with the Macklin Celebrini, draft pick. Will Smith's coming. I assumed that they would get one or two more.
Yeah, but again, with them, I mean, you know what you are. I guess they signed Tyler Toffoli too for 4 years.
They've got Toffoli and Wenberg.
Yeah, so you've gotten some offense. They're miserable defensively though.
Yeah.
And you're getting them no help. And the only goalie you have signed is Mackenzie Blackwood. So I don't think they wanted to do too much. Again, you grab 3 new players. You're going to have Will Smith there. We'll see what Macklin does, if he stays or goes back. But
maybe Sam can make a nice offer to Jackson Stauber.
Yeah, well, Kevin's still out there, so I think they would make an offer for Kevin before they did that. So, I mean, Lankington is still out there.
Wait, who?
Kevin Lankington.
Kevin Lankington's in Nashville.
No, he's not. He's a free agent.
He is a free agent.
Hold on. Let me check. He comes up on my free agents, if I am not mistaken. Kevin Lankington. UFA.
The more you learn on your own show.
Yes. Yes, that's why Nashville signed another goaltender.
Wedgwood.
So that's why Wedgwood was signed. They went with a little bit more experience. I don't know why. That's a little weird.
Yeah.
I guess Lank only had a 908 save percentage and 2.28, which isn't the greatest either. So I guess at the end of the day, he didn't quite get it done, and that's why they relied so much on Saros at the end of the year. So, but we can move on. Where would you like to move on to?
I think we can move on to the happiest part of our week, which is the Chicago Blackhawk free agent signings that Kyle did on Monday. Guys, I've said it before that I was not the biggest Kyle fan, and I don't forgive him entirely for shipping my boy 88 away. However, guys, he brought somebody home that is very near and dear to my heart. Once upon a time, many moons ago, there was a small forward by the name of Teuvo Teravainen. He played with the Chicago Blackhawks. He won a cup with the Chicago Blackhawks.
Sure did.
He was traded to the Carolina Hurricanes with Brian Bickle and was very sad about being traded. There were a lot of stories with him not understanding the trade. I thought I was doing a good job. I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. I thought they liked me. It ripped out my heart quite a bit. Is one of the 100 reasons why I do not like Stan Bowman. But Kyle has fixed that problem because Teuvo Teravainen is coming home. All I wanted, I didn't expect much going into this free agent signing. I was hoping that they would get a guy to play with Connor. Teuvo is definitely a guy that could play with Connor, but I didn't think they would get my favorite free agent. And it feels amazing.
All righty. Boy, you okay?
The theatrical entrance to Teuvo coming back.
Yes. And with Teuvo, it's a good reminder for your listeners to careful what you hear, what all of a sudden certain people say. Teuvo had to go through that. Don't know exactly why, but right before he was dealt, obviously somebody in Blackhawks management decided to leak some stuff about wasn't the best practicer or stuff like that as to lessen the blow to the fan base. I've never heard anybody, and when I say anybody, the people that I'll always go to would be a beat reporter or like your guys for The Athletic, who basically do a lot of work with the team. If there was a practice problem, it would have been brought up by them, not just some crazy. So, but he also had to deal with that a little bit, which was a little rough sauce for him. It was just a terrible trade by Stan. I can't imagine that they couldn't figure out anything else but to attach Teuvo. So, and again, people call him tiny. He's 5'11". He's the same size as Oliver Moore. He'll be 2 inches bigger than Frank Nazar. He's a perfect fit. He is help on the power play for Connor Bedard. That's for sure. Whether he plays with him or not, who knows? But he'll help on power play number one. So
he definitely there's opportunity to make things better with him on the ice versus not signing him. When we go through all of these free agents, I just want everyone to know I'm not in the illusion that, oh, great, we signed these 6 guys, everything is going to change. It's not. We're still going to be really bad. However, having Teuvo on the ice is a lot better than not having Teuvo on the ice. I'm a firm believer of that.
Yes. We're not going to be an embarrassment that we were last year. These are NHL players. Teuvo's a very gifted player. One of the things that was most appealing to Carolina is they had Sebastian Aho, and Teuvo's a guy who can play with Sebastian Aho, meaning he has the hockey brain to play with good talent. Again, wasn't much hockey brain for Connor Bedard to play with. And Connor Bedard's not going to sit there and all of a sudden play dump and chase because he's, got two idiot forwards. Now, when he decides to do something off the rush, he'll have another player thinking the same way.
Well, and I also do think, because I don't think we've gotten any real clarity on the big question mark that is Taylor Hall at all, really. But I do think, best case scenario, Hall's back at the beginning of the season. Hall plays on the top line, and Teuvo's on the second. And Teuvo, he can play with Reichel. Best case scenario. Worst case scenario, Taylor Hall's still hurt. It's not something to freak out about, and he can easily be up on the first line with Connor.
Yeah, I've got him. I've got no trotting out Connor in the two new signees as my top line. Got no problem with that whatsoever.
Your other one,
Bertuzzi.
Yo,
I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. There's a couple things your listeners will need to know. Number one, this doesn't mean all of a sudden we're close to a playoff team. It's still going to be a long year, but you won't get embarrassed. You won't go 3 games without scoring a goal. And also from Blackhawk Nation, who is flipping out and going nuts. What about Frank Nazar? What about this guy? Do you really believe all of these forwards are going to make it through the year? The reason we were so pitiful is all of those injuries. Now you think nobody's going to get injured? Listen, they're going to get their times a little bit. If everybody's healthy, yeah, they're all in Rockford.
And
but
that's okay. We're going to talk about Rockford in a second. I want us to get through.
Right. But so that's the meathead Blackhawk Nation that all of a sudden looks at their little roster and goes, "Oh, these guys." Trust me, if you're relying on Hall, that's a mistake. Even Athanasiou has struggled to stay healthy, just like we got all those defensemen. Because if you're as we said many shows, if you're relying on Connor Murphy, that's a mistake. Well, Katie didn't make that mistake. He signed some veteran defensemen.
Yep. We're going to jump to the next guy that you mentioned that you're okay with.
Right. That was my transition.
Which is Bertuzzi. Hopping, collecting his cards of original 6 teams that he's going to play on. I'm all for this. For those who don't know, or for those who, the name sounds vaguely familiar, yes, this is the nephew of the infamous Bertuzzi that was loathed by the city of Chicago. Now, he can really play anywhere. I figure because of the current Blackhawk roster that he'll probably be or get top 6 minutes. But he gives that top 6 a bit of grit and a bit of personality. And a bit more spice. There's someone to, shove someone into the boards if they, look at Connor the wrong way without sending without sending Jason Dickinson or Nick Foligno to have to do the dirty work. He's going to score, and it's going to be great.
Yeah, no, Bertuzzi, very good pickup. Yeah, he's a gritty guy. He'll play in front of the net. I would assume he plays in front of the net on power play 1. He's got skill, not crazy mad skills, but he's a skilled player. He'll go to the dirty areas and can accomplish things with his skill. He don't take a lot of crap. He does look like he just got out of a meth house. I understand that. And he's a wacky dude from the little bit I'm really looking forward to kind of getting to know him a little bit, because my impression of him isn't good. I've got to figure he's not that bad of a guy. So I'm looking forward to getting some Tyler Bertuzzi stories and everything else. But again, he won't take a lot of crap for people doing stuff to Connor. He knows where his meal ticket is. He's a heart and soul guy. For your older listeners, you know that Andrew Shaw, blah, 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 except he can fight a little bit better than Andrew Shaw, a little bit more skilled than Andrew Shaw. He will occasionally do that dumb penalty like Andrew Shaw used to do too. But a very good pickup. These are one of the pickups that we had talked about that this has to start being more than 2 years.
Yeah.
We got to start giving these people more than 2 years. So Bertuzzi's 4, Teuvo's 3. You've got people now who are going to be with this team a little bit when they start to get a little good. And what that does is now everybody's got a vested interest.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not a placeholder. And that's important to players. They're going to give you a little bit extra. So, yeah, very happy with that signing. Also, the Teuvo one I thought was going to happen. But I definitely didn't want to tell Hockey Princess that, because then if it doesn't, she has a meltdown.
I was hoping that it would, but as KD and his predecessor have, conditioned me, is to just expect nothing to happen at all, or bad things like signing Corey Perry for $4 million. And then when something good happens, it's great.
Yeah. And again, he's a bit player that fits perfectly on this team. Teams aren't going out to get him because he's just
keep going.
He's not that piece that puts you over the hump.
No.
So, most teams are either looking for a piece to put them over the hump, or they're starting out from scratch and they'd rather go younger anyways. So, the two of them, yes, 2 thumbs up. Who do you want to go to next?
I think we've got our other 2 forwards, which is Craig Smith and Pat Maroon. Would you like to talk about them?
Yeah, I'll talk about Pat Maroon. He's a kind of local. Won like 4 cups in a row. He's going to play 4th line minutes. He's not going to play every game. But in this NHL days, something's done to Connor. If he's in the game, he'll be sent out to the ice. If he's not in the game, he'll be dressing the next time they play.
He will be there if Brendan Smith lays another hit on Connor. He will be there if Pavel Mityukov is beating Reese Johnson into the ice and Gudis is choking out Mac Entwistle. Guys, we finally have somebody to go toe-to-toe at least a little bit.
Exactly. So from that, he's a kind of an agitator. Think of him as a Corey Perry, except not a pussy. Because everybody who deals with Corey Perry looks him in the eyes and goes, listen, I know you're not going to do anything, pussy. So what are we doing here? We're Pat Maroon?
He has the potential to do some damage.
He's going to drop the gloves. He's going to go after you. Sorry about that P word. I know some people don't like it. I
know that's how you feel about Corey Perry.
Yeah. Pat will he'll drop the gloves if need be. So we talked about it a little bit last year. That can't just be Foligno's job. Foligno's what, 500 years old? All right, he's the same age as Pat Maroon. They're both 36, I think. But so this is where we can send out one guy, old guy each time. Craig Smith. He's a 4th line guy who's going to do a couple nice things for you. He's signed again. He's a veteran. So if he's healthy scratched, he gets it. He knows what it's about. Because the one thing we don't want to do is we don't want to be healthy scratching kids when they should be having ice time down in Rockford. So this gives us our depth. If we get a couple injuries, one guy goes down, doesn't mean we start cherry picking from Rockford. So he's just a depth. He's nothing more, nothing less. He's a professional. He gets it.
Yeah.
So,
then we've got Alec Martinez and TJ Brody. I like both of these. I like getting more than necessary in terms of numbers of defensemen. One, because as we've said for the past couple of weeks and earlier on the show, if you're relying on a healthy Connor Murphy, it's silly.
yes.
If you're relying on really the Blackhawks to be healthy, it's silly. So with having to, you have someone to potentially fill when Connor gets hurt again, and someone that could be a part of your third line pairing to play with, I hate to say one of the kids, because at this point I don't see Isaac Phillips as a kid anymore, but with someone who doesn't have as much NHL presence under their belt, you have someone to play. You're not having two kids just play as your third pairing.
Right. And again, I don't know what their plans are for Isaac, but I would assume by signing him, they like him enough that they want him to be a part of this for a little bit.
I don't know if he's actually signed yet.
Oh, he's just an RFA. So they qualified him.
Isaac Phillips and Louis Crevier were the only ones that they gave qualifying offers to, but I don't believe either of them have actually signed.
I'm picking up what you're throwing down there, Hockey Princess. Well, he's an RFA without arbitration rights, so he's going to get a year at whatever they qualified him at. But the thing is there any other team out there that would want an Isaac Phillips? It's possible. So
I think there's plenty of NHL teams that really have absolutely nothing defensively that are open to somebody new.
Well, if that's the case, then what your listeners need to know is, Isaac Phillips will be up on the big team roster. EDM will not be. And they're not bringing
to Rockford. I promise. I have to step on my little soapbox.
Even if he earns a little bit of time he's playing well, they're not going to swap spots, because if Isaac goes down to Rockford, he's got to clear waivers. Okay? You keep on talking for a second. I believe I have to plug in the computer.
Okay. Speaking of players being waiver exempt, I promise we'll get to Rockford in a hot minute. There were a lot of discussions on, we signed a bunch of forwards. What did that mean for the young kids? What does that mean for Lucas Reichel? Lucas Reichel will be playing on the big club this year. He will not be going to Rockford because his entry level has expired. He has the new contract that he signed at the end of last year. He is no longer waivers exempt. So he will not be going down to Rockford, as much as he did for the past couple of years. He is up here to stay, or he is up here to be traded if something wild happens. He is not one of the younger kids that's going to be, kind of moved around a bit.
Right. Have you gone over waiver exempt with your listeners?
Yes, but we can again. So waivers exempt means, so we've got the NHL up here, up top, which is Chicago. And then we've got Rockford, the AHL.
For those who are just listening to this program, Hockey Princess has put her hands above her head to symbolize up here, and then down below to symbolize down here.
So Lucas Reichel is up here in the NHL right now. It's above my head. He is waivers exempt, means he can go down to Rockford and it's fine. He can go back and forth. He could alternate every other game.
Uh-huh.
If he's non-waivers exempt, that means as he goes down, I'm dropping my hand, to the AHL, every other team has the opportunity to claim him for their team. If we saw this last year with Boris Kachuk, if there's anybody that takes him, then Lucas is gone. If there's nobody else that wants him, then he goes down to Rockford without a problem. And that process happens every time. So Lucas is not going to be going down to the AHL.
No, and I think at times people forget that kind of stuff. And so the kids are going to be down there. As of right now, we don't have a lot of defensemen set up in Rockford to begin with. So they're all going to get big time.
Yes.
So
one more person, and then I'm going to step on my little soapbox about Rockford because it'll segue to Rockford. We've got a new goaltender. I'm going to try not to butcher this, Lawrence Brosseau, something like that. He signed for a couple of years to back up Mrazek in theory. It'll be a little bit more consistency in front of the net. In terms of you have two primarily NHL goaltenders, not one NHL goaltender, and then one that's on the newer end. You have a little bit more consistency, a little less pressure constantly on Mrazek for the entire season, because it's a really long season, especially when you're really the only one that's being able to stop things in front of the net.
yeah, and I'm not positive. It looks like they've got at least 12 back-to-backs. So that's when your backup goaltender is definitely going to be playing.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for Bloom, that became a problem during the year because it's like the whole team even knew, oh shit, we got a back-to-back coming up. He's going to be in net, one of them. Things that just turn where the Biscuit is he was 15-5-2.
Yeah.
He was, I guess, 2 starts away from getting his name on the Jennings Trophy, along with Hollebuck, which I didn't know was a thing. So I will research that hopefully before next show, because I didn't know there was a qualifying number of starts you had to have. Because I know Crow won it in 13 and 15. Once with what was the guy's name? The local kid. And I think the other one was with another goaltender. We're just gonna leave it. It wasn't Weeks, but it was somebody else. The guy who passed away swimming. All right, nobody's helping me.
Are you talking about Emery?
Yes, Emery. He won it in Emery 2013. Hey, good job, Hockey Princess. I'm pretty proud of you. The other guy is, go on, he's got a lot of tattoos.
Darling.
So, but I didn't know there was a qualifying number. Now that I have speed bumped this show and run it aside, basically, so what I'm saying, he's a very good goaltender. He's got phenomenal numbers. Also, he played with a good Winnipeg team that was strong in front of him. But he'll be a solid backup. The idea is not to overwork Peter.
Yeah.
Peter's an old man with an injury history also. And, the last thing this team needs is Mrazek going back to being Mrazek.
Right.
So,
which leads us to, in theory, believing that Arvid Soderblom is going to be down in Rockford. I think that's okay. I'm a big fan of Arvid. I try not to give him too much hate just because he gets it from everyone. So I just try not to, harp too much on the kid. I do think he is a solid AHL goaltender. I think he does well in Rockford. He will continue to do well in Rockford. I think he's a great pairing for Drew Commesso because this will be Comesso's second year. And like I've been screaming on my show, we do not want to rush Drew Commesso. He is the Chicago Blackhawk future in front of the net. And so Arvid has a lot of experience in Rockford. He can kind of take the reins if Commesso, has a moment, has a skid, has a confidence shake throughout the season in Rockford. I'm perfectly confident in Bloom being able to do that.
Yeah, Bloom played like crap. And Crusty Old Guy was on the Bloom train at the beginning of the year. I like what he could do. And at the beginning, I think he had one or two good starts. And everything just fell apart. And then, the team in front of him fell apart and he was lost. So, the punishment you get is, you don't get NHL minutes, son. Jackson Starborough took the brunt of it because he was let go. Bloom's going to have to find his game. Can he? I guess it's possible, but you're now way down on the depth chart, and people won't forget about next year either. I hope, but nothing but the best for him also. It really went south, and it went south bad. He pulled himself out once or twice and kind of got it together, but you could even tell then it was the struggle. So that's all I got on the Bloom.
All right. Now we're going to get to Rockford. As we've kind of been talking with.
Oh, were we supposed to put up our phones?
No, and why is yours blinking?
Mine's not blinking. Look at that.
It was blinking.
Look at that. That's the ice from like 2005.
2000 and something. Like we've said with all of these free agent signings, a lot of people are concerned, well, what does this mean for Landon? What does this mean for NASCAR? What does this mean for X, Y, and Z person? It means they play in Rockford, which is probably, well, no, not even probably, where they should be. They should develop together. They should grow together. They should not have to sit through 80-something games of this shit show on the NHL or in the NHL. They should sit in Rockford, do the thing, fingers crossed that there's a semi-decent postseason or a playoff run with this team. Who knows? But they should be in Rockford. It's not a demotion for Landon to go down to Rockford or NASCAR or even Korchinski. It's okay. It's okay. It's going to be okay. These, like we said all last year and part of this offseason, Rockford's going to be very entertaining to watch. Can't promise it's good. Can't promise it'll be bad because I really don't know. But it's going to be very entertaining. And it's going to be very entertaining because you have all of these young guys coming from college, coming from CHL, coming from wherever to develop together to then get good enough to then make the jump and make the Blackhawks good again.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, there's always needs to be a little explaining on the way this usually works. Because if you're an older Blackhawk fan, you saw like Johnny in '88 just jump. And then you saw a couple more kids make a quick jump. Who was your Andrew Shaw, your Brandon Saad. It doesn't happen very often.
You're Nicholas Hjalmarsson, you're Dustin Bufflin, you're Dave Bullen. The rest of that group was together at the beginning of Rockford, because Rockford was not always the AHL affiliate to the Chicago Blackhawks. They grew together. These kids are going to grow together. I'm going to get my dream line of Sam Savoie, Paul Ludwinski, and Gavin Hayes growing together.
Yeah, and it's where they should all be. Cora would have been there if he could have, but no, he, it was either juniors or the NHL. I like the fact that most all of these defensemen staying there a couple of years, really working with Drew, getting it together. Would I mind seeing Korchinski down there? I wouldn't mind seeing Korchinski down there at all. Watching him revamp his power play game down in Rockford and get some confidence, because I'm sorry, every time he went on to PP1 last year, he didn't just mess it up. He really screwed it up. It was a rough go for the kid.
Well, and we don't know quite yet. There hasn't been an announcement whether he goes back to Michigan State or whether he does come up to the big leagues this year. You have the opportunity of Artyom Levshinov going to Rockford this year. And if he could have an entire season of him playing with Kevin, I think it'd be great.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with it. Again, only reason that would even be entertained is if they have certain impressions about Kevin. And I don't mean whether he's talented or not. I mean, with some kids and some players, if you were to send them back down, or if you were to send them down, up here it might really mess with them. So even if you think it's the better spot for him as Rockford, if you're not positive it doesn't get up here, you can't do it. So they've got to be in tune with him, and you have to let this kid know that this is a good path. It's nothing that you're doing terribly, and you've got to look him in the eye and somehow get that perfect read from him that he is more than okay with it. If you don't, then you don't even think about it. You leave him and just deal with the way things are in the NHL. I just think the hockey mind might be more of a big issue than anything else about Cora if you were to send him down. That's the one thing I would be fragile about.
Yeah.
Everybody handles that different, and you don't want the kid all of a sudden to get lost. I don't think it would happen because all of that core is down there except for Connor. So, but either way, I spent all last year. I don't get on Core's shit. He's 19 years old. I give him a free pass for the most part next year also. And then we'll start to talk.
He's 19 years old. He's playing with a very bad team, and with the amount
and with very bad partners.
Well, and with the injuries that they had this past year,
yes.
Nothing was consistent for him.
Right. And, as I said, his defensive partners were terrible. And let's not forget the fact that, Pops passes away mid-season and you're 19 years old. I don't care who you are, man. That's some rough sauce.
Yeah.
And especially they were pretty close. So, no, I don't want to do any Kevin bashing. I did that enough when he was drafted. So once
we
once
don't
he signed,
we
I'm
wish
all good.
nothing but the best. And like I said, I do hope that he goes to Rockford. Not because I think he needs to be in Rockford, but I think it would help the defensive core for them to all be there together. And I think it really benefits Artie.
Yeah, it might. We'll see what he does. I'm pretty sure even if he goes back to Michigan State, then the following year he goes to Rockford. I would like him to also get the same treatment, which means 2 years away. But I've heard that he's really close, physically ready. Yes, he is. Still doesn't mean he needs to be rushed. I heard that with, somebody had mentioned, I believe it was Sam. Good old Fells. who mentioned, well, what about NASCAR?
Rockford.
He doesn't really deserve to be down in Rockford. Well, does he really deserve to be in the NHL? And if so, why?
Well, and I think we need to stop treating being in Rockford as some sort of demotion.
Bingo.
It's not. It you are still playing professional hockey, but it is not a demotion. You had a couple of games at the end to burn your first year of your contract. And it's because you weren't going to go to Rockford. It is not a demotion to then go down and play with the rest of the kids. And it kind of, or at least in my opinion, it sets the tone that, there's 98, but nobody's better than anybody else. You all have to go through the same thing. You all go down there, grow together, and then come up. Nobody gets to skip doing their development and doing their time.
Wow, I think you need to go on every podcaster show and explain to them what you just did in the last 2 minutes. That was impressive. I'm speechless. I can't say any of that better. You're completely right on that. It can't, I don't think the kids look at it as demotion. Maybe it's just meatheads like us that talk, but it can't be looked at as a demotion. You're completely right on. That's excellent work.
Nice. I'm quite proud of myself with that.
I know. Crusty old guy, he doesn't throw out very many compliments. Trust me. That's what keeps him crusty and old. Okay, where else are we going with that? Are we done with Rockford?
Yeah, we're done with Rockford.
Do we got anything else to talk about?
Not really in detail, but the season did come out today.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of exciting things. We are the first team to play in Utah. Very exciting. So our first game of the regular season is going to be Tuesday, October 8th in Utah. Very exciting. And then our home opener is Thursday, October 17th at 7:30. It is Connor Bedard versus Macklin Celebrini. Who would have guessed it? Who would have guessed it? It's like Gary Bettman wrote it.
God, that poor kid has the weight of a frigging league on him. For the love of God.
Yeah.
What he had to do with the draft, the award stuff. Jeez. Give the kid a break. All right, sorry. Yeah, schedule looks really good. The NHL is being very kind to the Chicago Blackhawks still, meaning you got a ton of weekend games there to get out there. And a ton of Sunday 2:00 starts with a sprinkling of a 5 or a 6. Yes, Hockey Princess.
And because I was very, very upset with this last year, Chicago Blackhawks home opener and the Rockford Ice Hogs home opener do not fall on the same night. I was very upset with it last year. I thought it was silly. So you guys, everybody can go to both. You can go to Rockford and you can go to Chicago. You can see everybody.
That's right. No need to work. No need to sleep. Just go watch hockey all the time.
That's what we do.
Well, you should be working. Yeah.
You got anything else for this week?
I don't believe so. No, I think we could. I guess we figure out. We can talk about what happened the rest of free agency wise, as we do sizing up of teams coming into the year. So
we got time. We have a lot of time.
Yes, we do. This is now what they call the dog days. This is where everybody up in Canada goes to their cottages, they tell me. Yeah. They all go and regroup and get ready for September. We will still be putting out a show. We're going to have to figure out on some material.
Yeah. If you guys have any questions, things about hockey that you want us to explain, be it in the game, draft stuff, free agency stuff, contract stuff, whatever, let us know. And we'll dedicate an entire episode to explaining it because we have time. Just as a reminder, make sure to hit that like and subscribe on either Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, however you watch or listen to us ramble on a weekly basis. Yep, Chris Yoga, you got one more thing?
Oh, yeah, and remember, next week we got a lot of great stuff planned, so don't think that nope, got a lot of great stuff coming at you, so
you got good stuff. We got good stuff coming at you every week until the beginning of hockey in September.
Yes.
That is all, and we will talk at you guys next week.